Welcome to the Holdo Maneuver Podcast. I'm Mark Bibbert.
And I'm Michael Soren. We are two hardworking dads trying to immerse ourselves in Star Wars and fit it into our very busy lives.
This is your first time listening and or watching in this, most of the time, short form Star Wars podcast. We'll share our thoughts on different topics from a galaxy far, far away.
Hey guys, who's Andor's favorite Godzilla monster?
I don't know, but I bet their lips aren't synced to their voices.
Mon Mothra.
I wonder if she's attracted to the light.
She is on the light
Of the
side.
Force.
So.
Yeah, everybody, welcome back, Adam.
Yes, welcome back.
On this past
Yeah,
week.
thanks for having me.
Bringing Mike back into the school of the Jedi Academy. What was it you said last time? You were the kid in kindergarten eating.
Oh, you would remember that. I'm the guy who's shoving paste up his butt trying to see what it tastes like.
Yeah. Welcome back. We had you on for Obi-Wan, so I figured I'd ask you back for Andor.
Yeah.
But this week, this is episode 24 of Holdo Maneuver, talking about episode 4 of Andor. And so we added this segment recently. It's called I Am Your Father, kind of like a short story time segment. And it can be about offspring of ones that came from you or ones that are pets as well. So was there any stories that you wanted to share about any of your pets from the past week at all, Adam?
Gosh. I don't know. I was thinking, and I'm super happy it's fall. The weather's actually starting to get decent because now I can take Hooper on walks and stuff, and both of us don't have to worry about dying from heat strokes. So we've been doing more of that recently, and hope to keep that up. Then Janine, my cat, has decided that she likes to sleep on top of the refrigerator now, so got to figure that out because it's kind of annoying.
It's warm up there.
Yeah.
She's just going with her namesake. She wants to kind of make sure there's not any demons or anything inside of the fridge.
Very true. Yeah.
They were in Poltergeist, so.
Yeah. And then how about you, Mike?
Nothing that really stands out. Busy week as always. To tie it into Star Wars, I wish I drank calf could use that. My kid's been in the gibberish phase. She can speak full sentences, but then now she's just making up words. So it's like I'm living in a planet somewhere that I'm just I don't understand. I need a protocol droid to translate for me.
Just teach her a Gungan.
No.
It should be like, Dad, Misa, need to go brush my
Something
teeth.
okie day. Okie day. I wish she said I go brush my teeth instead of me being no, you're going to brush your teeth.
Well, now that we know, poodoo is also straight up just the word shit in the Star Wars universe as well. So that's cool. I guess that's cool to know that there's also these other kinds of swear words in the Star Wars universe. Actually, what did you think about that, Adam?
I didn't even notice it the first time it happened. And then someone had mentioned it on Twitter, I guess. I was like, yeah, I guess so. It didn't really stick out to me. I thought the stuff in Last Jedi, the your mama joke or whatever, I thought that really stuck out to me, and Poe is talking to Hux at the beginning. That sort of took me out of it for a moment. I was like, did he just make a your mother joke? But yeah, this one, it just completely whizzed by. It felt natural, I guess.
It was very natural, the delivery, but it definitely hit me. I was like, whoa. First off, Disney allowed that. And second off, this is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Then we got an ass reference in this episode.
Well, I remember it was a huge, now there's been a few PG-13 ones, but I remember it was a huge deal that Revenge of the Sith was going to be PG-13 when that came out.
Yeah.
Because like every other one of the films had been PG at that point. Albeit like 1970s, 1980s PG was very
PG-13 didn't
yeah.
exist until like 86, 84 or something like that.
Yeah, after
But yeah,
Temple of
like
Doom.
yeah, 70s, 80s PG is definitely closer to late 90s, early aughts PG-13.
Yeah.
But
That PG-13 was for child murder.
yeah,
You know, like that's all Revenge of the Sith has going for it. So,
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. My I Am Your Father story this week is so I spoke about my son last week, so I figured this week talk about my mini schnauzer. Uh, Similar to like what you're saying about like being able to like walk them outside without worrying about them like dying of heat stroke. That's been nice because I have to like bring her. I usually have to take her for a walk either like very very late at night, at like well late at night for our age it would be like 9:30 now.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm also like in Phoenix, Arizona, so it's actually hotter at like 9 at night than it is at like 7 in the morning. So either have to take
All the
her,
heats.
like, yeah, because it's all like soaked up into the asphalt and stuff. So I either have to take her at like 4 or 5 in the morning for a walk, so she's not like gasping for like air and stuff, or really late at night. So I'm looking forward to it continuing to cool down, so it's not like we're walking on Mustafar out when we're outside. But yeah, so that's our I am your father. I am. I got a little bit. I got a little bit of your gibberish from your daughter there, Mike.
There you go. It's contagious.
Please.
It's exhausting,
no
but it's contagious.
No gibberish at the table. Sorry, Daddy. For the news this week, we're just going to talk quickly about the fact that it was made official that James Earl Jones is retiring as the voice of Darth Vader. We kind of, sort of, knew this a little bit from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and this just kind of made it official that he's retiring as like straight up doing dialogue for it, and then the re-speecher is going to essentially be doing his voice from now on.
Yeah, he signed over the rights, which I thought was an interesting way to put it.
Yeah,
I didn't think he would have to do that.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess that could get into like a whole thing with like voice actors doing just like a tiny bit of dialogue, and then they never get hired again because they like the company has like all these samples of their voices, so they're like, oh, well, we don't need to hire.
Yeah, I assume giving them the rights was more so you have the right to use my voice, you know, in this vast audio database that you have to, you know, make me say whatever you want me to say.
Yeah.
Which is interesting and kind of uncharted territory. But I think, you know, after Peter Cushing estate allowed Lucasfilm to recreate Tarkin digitally in Rogue One, and what they had to do with Leia in The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, I feel like going forward, we're going to see more and more of this. And I guess there's a lot of ethical questions around it. You know, like why wouldn't you just hire another voice actor or something like that? But I really don't have an issue with it. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of Vader. You know, we'll get him here and there in different projects, but you know, as far as the character goes, we've got his entire life story, and for, you know, if he's just going to show up here and there, then yeah, why not just have the re-speecher do the work? So
yeah, it's just interesting. Side note is that Bruce Willis signed over his rights to a deep fake company, so people can use his image and stuff. Because he can't act anymore, so it's like, I'll do this and live through that.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if he also sign over like his voice to like the re-speecher too, because then like that would be an interesting thing to basically have like both of those. I mean, well, I guess they already kind of did that a little bit with Luke.
Yeah.
Because But we saw like how Vader it sounded a little better just because his voice is already kind of supposed to be like
Mm.
mechanical
Yeah,
or whatnot, so it sounds more natural. And that
and
makes
I
sense.
mean, obviously, James Earl Jones is a legend, and we're extremely lucky to have him
Yeah,
involved. But yeah, I think just the when he returned to do the voice for Rogue One, I think it was noticeable that it was an older voice. It
Mm.
didn't quite sound the same as the Vader we knew from the original trilogy. So, but that was not an issue at all in Obi-Wan. I mean that was really impressive.
yeah,
It just sounded exactly like 1983 Darth Vader. So um, I'm cautiously optimistic about where this technology is headed. As long as it's not, just like with everything else, as long as it's not abused and used in moderation and used alongside practical techniques, I think it can be really, really powerful. And I think we're also going to see a ton of it just sort of adjacently. The new Indiana Jones movie,
yeah,
from the reports of the footage that was shown at D23, there's a lot of footage in there of Indiana Jones at various ages, like closer to
Interesting.
his age in like Temple of Doom and stuff like that. So I think we're going to keep seeing this, like blurring the lines between what is quote unquote deep fake and the Reese Beecher thing and
Mm.
the like de-aging tech of Marvel.
yeah,
Because like that de-aging tech is amazing, but it can only get you so far. Because like you were saying, if the person's voice has aged, there's going to be that disconnect between seeing young Luke but hearing current day Mark Hamill's voice come out of it. So you kind of have to have both together.
yeah. It's definitely a very interesting thing and like topic, and especially like what that could eventually get into too. And it almost seems to kind of like close it out too is that like Robin Williams kind of like had a forethought about like all of this kind of stuff too, because he had like this whole thing in his will about not being able to use like his likeness, like
Mm.
visual or voice in anything like after he had passed away. So it's interesting that he wrote that in to his will, like even before like all this stuff became huge stuff. So it's I think that's kind of interesting that he had like the foresight of like knowing that he's like I don't want
Yeah,
I don't want to be like in a random Coke
Mm.
commercial or something like that, like in the Super Bowl
yeah.
in like 20.
A Whitney Houston hologram touring America.
Yeah. So,
Doesn't want that.
but yeah, it's definitely interesting stuff. And as we get like further and further away from like some of like the original trilogy stuff, and like as they do more with like say, um, like Mark Hamill or with Carrie Fisher or Fleming or James Earl Jones, it should be interesting to see how much further they do go with some of this stuff later on.
Yeah.
But going from there, let's finally get into our main topic this week. So this week we only had the one episode that we had to watch. Uh, I liked how this was a little bit longer though too. It's just like a little under 50 minutes, so it's probably like closer to like 45 minutes or so without the credits. Uh, like just before we get like deep into the episode, what were kind of like uh, your your first impressions and kind of like overall thoughts of this episode? I guess Adam first, and then Mike.
My first impression was that I loved it. I was excited for this sort of block of more Mon Mothma focused stories because I got the impression watching this episode that at least it feels like the Andor story is sort of the B story at the moment. He's on this Scottish Highlands planet, meeting these new rebels, and they're going to pull off this heist. But for this episode, that really took a back seat to what Luthen was doing and what Mothma is doing. And it's just so cool to see, Coruscant again and just feel the galaxy sort of open up while also kind of revisiting some of these familiar places.
Definitely, it's interesting to
Yeah, I
see.
didn't expect it to become a heist type show.
Yeah,
I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see Coruscant during the day because I feel like most of the time that we see Coruscant is, I think like 80% of the time is like either like at like dusk or at night. I feel like
Right.
so it's
Yeah,
always
it's true.
interesting when
And
you see it like in like the middle of the day.
the other crazy thing too is, there's still a ton of special effects. Obviously, there's still
Mhm.
a ton of CGI, but like some of those buildings and some of those places on Coruscant are real locations, and we've never seen Coruscant with a real location because in the prequels it was all blue screen. So like
Crazy.
that's giving it another level of like texture almost. I feel like
Yeah.
Coruscant's always sort of looked like a screensaver, like it's
Yeah,
really pretty to look at, but it's always shiny and, lit up and everything. And so to see it sort of like the Imperial Security Bureau was this like ugly concrete and glass kind of
Mhm.
structure. So I thought, it was
yeah.
interesting to see Coruscant through a more practical lens.
I made a note of that to myself when they were in there that it kind of looked like what like if you're on the outside of the spaceship Earth at Epcot. That's what like
Mhm.
that's what you'd think
Yeah.
the inside of the spaceship Earth would look like at Epcot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. What were your like first impressions and thoughts about it, Mike?
Like I said, I wasn't expecting it to go full blown heist. Did not see that coming. I'm enjoying it. I thought it ended kind of abruptly. Even though I can see where it ended, but it just felt like it was it was meant to be like a cliffhanger type deal, but it was a week. Like you knew they were going to do that. Maybe end it a little sooner instead of like I don't know. It's just the pacing and the ending were just caught me off guard. I was like, I don't something like I felt like they had another beat to go,
Right.
but it was just like here, study up, and then
Yeah, I sort of felt that too. He was like, "Can I finish eating first?" And then it just
Oh
like
yeah.
sort of
Oh yeah.
ended. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I think that goes with what we were like, or what we were thinking, and I think it got confirmed was that like the 12 episode seasons are like done in like these four like story arc chunks. So like there's like we
Yeah,
watched the first arc last week with those 3 acts, and then now we're getting the first act of this one. So like I prefer like a weekly release for like streaming shows and TV shows like that.
no, I
That's
want it all at once.
just my personal opinion, so that I don't have to like avoid like a video explaining the ending of the season 4 hours
Well,
in.
that comes out anyway. Like
I know, but then that way I don't have to like avoid it for like 3 weeks as I actually watch the show.
yeah,
12:01, you can go on YouTube and there'll be 30,000 videos explaining the show.
It's like, how did you already watch the ending? It's 8 hours long. It's you already recorded this. You must have watched the ending first and then did a video. But what I was gonna say with this is that I almost think it would have been cool if like how we got the first 3 episodes last week. Maybe I mean I guess it would have burned off the season pretty quickly. But if they would have released this over the course of 4 weeks and did like a event release each week where it was you got
yeah,
the
Hmm.
3 episode chunks, and it would almost be like 4 and/or movies each week in a way,
yeah,
kind of similar to. I mean, although if this episode was 50 minutes, I don't know how long like the second, third one are gonna be. That might have been like
Well, they set up a lot in this episode to go forward, so
yeah,
yeah,
but that especially with like what we've heard about season 2, like where that's gonna be like over the course of like the other 4 years.
right. Each block is going to be a year.
Yeah,
Um,
so almost
yeah,
it'll probably be the similar release as this one was, but that that could be interesting to see like playing with like how they release these in like chunks if they are done like in this 3 tiered arc of 4 kind of story blocks throughout it.
yeah,
hmm.
Um, but yeah, like my other like overall impression too was that the this character that Skarsgård plays, Luthen, he's a very interesting character. Uh, Both that he feels like very cold, but like
Hmm.
and this is
He's all business.
Yeah, but and then like I also wonder like if we're gonna see like any more of like his kind of backstory at all to see like
Right. There
it's
must be
all
something. There must be something deeply personal that's motivating him that we don't know about yet.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like
That
I remember when we saw some of these trailers and they showed him with the longer hair, I was like, oh, that must be like a flashback or
right.
Nope,
something before
just a
that. And
wig.
then like they're like, oh dang, he's just like the master disguise.
Yeah, just a sweet wig and a collection of fancy rings
Yeah, I
and
like it, and I like how he's got like a
robes.
completely different like personality that he puts
Yeah.
on when he's doing that.
Yeah, I love his character so far, and Stellan Skarsgård is just great. It's so crazy that we've got Werner Herzog and Stellan Skarsgård in Star
Yeah,
Wars shows, but
Mhm.
very
they're kind of
excited to
in
see
very different eras, but it would be interesting if they were like
Ever Crossed.
yeah,
Yeah,
Well, they could have. Then
yeah.
it's
They
not
just
like
I guess they would just have to either de-age
yeah.
Werner Herzog or age like way age up
yeah,
Skarsgård.
yeah. I'm excited to see his continued interactions with Genevieve O'Reilly, and then when Saw
Yeah,
Gerrera shows up, it'll be great to see those two characters bounce off of each other because they have a common goal, but I feel like they're going about it completely different
Yeah,
ways. So
I agree.
I liked that we
There's going to
got
be
that.
some tension and like what the end goal and how to get there. There's got to be some tension there.
Yeah, and I like that we got that Saw reference in this episode where like the name drop of
Hmm.
him on there. So it should be interesting to see like when he shows up and like how that all take place because just like how intermixed he's already been like within different things like Bad Batch and Rebels and Clone Wars and like even like the
yeah,
Jedi Fallen Order game and Rogue One.
yeah,
It'll be
that
yeah
that's just another thing, like sort of thinking ahead. Like we're saying for season two, each block of episodes is going to cover a different year. At some point there, we're going to cross over with like Rebels territory when we get
yeah
2 to 3 years BBY. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring any of those characters in or
yeah
they've been very quick to sort of shoot down the idea of fan service and that sort of thing, but they're getting very close to substantial events that have already happened in Rebels that I don't think you can ignore. So, and they've already got some Easter eggs in this episode that we'll talk about later that
oh yeah
tie directly into Rebels. So,
yeah. I like one of the things um, I liked a lot in here was especially like I guess we can just get to that too is like when he went to the gallery there was it seemed like that was like chock full of uh, seemingly a lot of like little Easter eggs dropped here and there like in like Easter eggs in the fullest like sense of the word because they're not like
Hmm.
straight up and in your face. You had to like kind of like pause and like kind of look in the back a little bit
oh
or
yeah,
like go frame by frame.
yeah, I loved. Did you see Indiana Jones's whip?
No,
Oh,
I did not.
I did not see that.
It's in carbonite. When he
Nice.
takes her around the back, there's sort of a row of smaller, more like square shaped carbonite units, I guess you would call them. And the one that's facing front or forward to the camera looks like Indiana Jones' whip in carbonite. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, there's a
So
ton of stuff in there. There's like some stone tablets with hand symbols on them, and those are directly from like the mural of the Mortis characters from Rebels.
oh yeah,
There's like holocrons and Mandalorian armor, and there's some like Wookiee. There's like a Wookiee helmet from. I think you see a Wookiee wear a helmet like that during the Battle of Kashyyyk.
yeah. There's like a
Um,
big armor in the back that looked like it had like the spikes on it.
so
I almost
that
thought that was Vader at first.
so apparently that is Starkiller's Sith Stalker armor from Force Unleashed,
Yeah,
the video game. If you ever played that, there's like a Gungan shield back there. They really kind of crammed it full of stuff.
now mean, since that's in there, people are gonna be like, wait, so is Star Killer canon now? But I think the timeline for that won't work out either, too, because of like.
No, yeah. I think all they're acknowledging is that this Sith Stalker armor is a thing that, maybe assassins or disciples had at some point. But yeah, I don't think we're going to canonize Vader's secret apprentice at this point.
And I think that was like that dark side ending of the game too, so it wasn't like the canon ending. Although I still wish they could somehow canonize that again, because I really liked that, the his family crest was like the basis for the Rebel Alliance logo.
Oh yeah,
it kind of gave it like a little bit more of like a backstory and like I guess more of like meaning to that symbol being used for it.
Yeah,
so I can, with like how Filoni's like worked other stuff back into the canon, like with Thrawn and stuff like that. I trust him to work some of that stuff in there in some way. I mean, they kind of already did that sort of with Rebels, with where it's like Sabine's like Phoenix logo that he was doing, kind of more or less evolved into the Rebel logo.
Yeah.
And like you said, with it kind of like buttressing up against Rebels storyline stuff, now that they've cast like live action versions of all those characters, well, for at least for most of the characters that we know of, it could be interesting to see, like maybe or something like that.
I mean, Tony Gilroy literally said that the end of season 2 is going to butt up, like it's going to walk you right into Rogue One. And I mean, the Ghost is in Rogue One, and we hear General Syndulla's name over the loudspeaker in the Rebel base. So, like, to me, there is a good chance that that we could see, some characters from Rebels show up.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and the other interesting, I don't know if I would call it an Easter egg per se, but the scene with Mon Mothma and her husband.
Oh yeah,
that was a strange scene. It was cool but strange.
The dinner party, we know they mentioned Sly Moore, who is Palpatine's like weird, creepy assistant, but they also mentioned the Gormans, which are, I guess, a species, or on a planet, and that comes up in Rebels as the Gorman Massacre, which I think happens like 2 years before Star Wars, and basically that's the inciting incident that makes Mon Mothma denounce Palpatine publicly and basically makes her an enemy of the Empire. So, like, knowing that, and they have her mention the Gorman, like they're going to starve because there's a blockade or whatever. It's like they're already sowing those seeds that I assume we're going to see the Gorman Massacre in season 2 as this big, inciting incident. And that's brief. I think that's briefly mentioned in Rebels as well. So,
now is her husband and Galen Erso of the same planet? Because they had like the same dress and hairstyle.
the top knot.
Yeah.
He looked like Fancy Will Forte to me. But
I just kept seeing Galen Erso every time I was like looking at him.
I appreciate how much of a jerk he is, and it's going to be very satisfying to see Mon Mothma kick him to the curb at some point. So.
And going back to the artifacts, what he hands Mon Mothma to give her husband, was that of any significance anywhere else? Like, they focus on it, so I felt like we're supposed to know what it is.
I had never heard of it before in terms of like the lore he was talking about, but I did think it was interesting that he was talking about this thing that can be interpreted light and dark. And so it's almost like he was talking about the Force in that moment, or, it was also reminding me of that mural that you see in The Last Jedi, where like the person is bisected and it's like light and dark exists in the same being. So I just thought like maybe thematically it serves a
Right.
purpose more so than an actual
I'm
reference.
just curious.
Yeah, that also kind of works with Luthen in this episode too. With
Yeah,
like,
totally.
thematically,
Yeah.
like how he's like, oh, he's like this. He's also like this too, and like
Yeah.
he's very good at acting very different around different people because he's like acting one way in front of Cassian, and then
Clem. You mean Clem?
Oh yeah,
Clem.
what was the name of the woman that was on?
Isn't it Val or Vel?
Vel, yeah.
Vel? Like yeah, and he was like acting one way and like talking about Cassian, aka Clem, on one way to her, and then like this whole other. Well, although what I thought was funny at one point is like when he went in the back and was talking to Mon Mothma, it seems like his assistant at that shop is like also in on all that stuff too.
Yeah.
So when it was like just the three of them in there at that one point, I was like, so why is there all this pretense right now when it's the three of them are seemingly in on it? And it seemed like that other dude was like, oh, like cool, but I guess maybe he's like not in on all of that stuff too.
They
Was
were very cautious because he was like a new driver.
Yeah.
And they didn't know a lot about him, and it seemed that, I think Mothma said at one point that she felt like she was under siege because there's a new spy in the Senate every week. So I liked that scene, and that Luthen's assistant sort of distracts him and starts showing him coins and stuff so they can go talk. So I got the impression that, he may be a spy, and if not, they're super paranoid, and they've got to keep up appearances. So
yeah. Speaking of that too, like we got the Ryloth mention in this episode too for the Twi'lek planet, or Twi'lek. Star Wars has two pronunciations for a lot of things. So.
Yeah.
And then we also got the Scarif mentioned too, which I thought was interesting because then it also sounded like they said there was like a bunch of supplies being brought there, so it was like
construction equipment.
Yeah, like they were like supplying mobilization or something to Scarif. Then also later, that this Lieutenant Gorn character who is helping, the like rebel heist situation on Aldhani, he mentioned something about an Imperial engineer coming, and that made me wonder if that could be Krennic. Not necessarily that I expect to see Krennic on the show or anything, but just referencing it, just putting it out there.
Yeah. Well, Ben Mendelsohn's already doing like Secret Invasion with Disney Plus. He could come in and shoot a quick thing for or for him. And then there's one other thing. Like, so I'm also wondering, did they ever say like if like Jimmy Smits was going to be in this too? Because he was in Obi-Wan, but
I don't think they've officially said that, but I think it's pretty well known that he's going to show up at some
if anything,
point.
I feel like he would definitely be in season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to show up.
He'll send one of those video messages that conveniently gets played and leaves a bunch of information.
He gives all the info away. Like, what are you doing?
And that was another question, just sort of mentioning Bail, like when she goes to see Luthen and she mentions that, she thinks she's met someone that she thinks they can bring into the circle. I wonder who that is, because you would think Bail's already in that circle. That would be me making that assumption because he's friends with Jedi and whatnot.
Because this is 5 years after the Obi-Wan series.
Correct. And they mentioned Saw, and so you already sort of get the idea that Saw is this rebel, or he's definitely anti-Empire. He's doing something. So I'm wondering who that could be, and I think we may have already seen them. I think it might be the like silver-haired guy from the trailer that Mothma is talking to at the dinner party.
Okay.
Where he's like, "What do you intend to do?" or whatever. It seems like she's sort of telling him in that moment what's going on. So I guess we'll find out at the crazy dinner party with Sly Moore.
Oh yeah. Hopefully it goes the same way the dinner party went on The Office.
Well, speaking of The Office, it is kind of interesting to see the Office dynamic within the Empire, how they consider themselves healthcare providers, and they're treating all the other people who don't comply as like viruses.
That was wild.
Yeah,
And then
that was a very
accusations you're trying to climb the ladder instead of just like
Yeah, just to see like the infighting between like
Mhm.
Miro and Blevin, and then both of them taking their case to sort of the head guy,
oh yeah.
Sergeant Perez, something
Sergeant Maester from Game of Thrones.
like that. But yeah, that's really fascinating, and then you have Cyril Karn, who gets taken down a peg or two, not only by Blevin but by his mom, who slaps him in the face. So
Getting some Norman Bates bias from Cyril.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out as well.
Yeah, it's curious.
Although I did have kind of like a thought with that too, is that that I can almost see him being disenchanted by the Empire slowly from this, like because of like how like deep and like much like how like he was like really gung ho about all that stuff, and then like all of this happened in those first 3 episodes. I could almost see him kind of being similar to like Callus that we met in Rebels, and him kind of being like a character that's kind of on the side of the Empire, but then like slowly comes over maybe to become part of like the Rebel Alliance. That could be like a pretty cool twist, or like a character development for him, where we think like we're like, oh man, we hate this guy like in this first episode.
Yeah,
huge like tool and everything, and then by like the end of either this season or like the end of season 2, we're like, oh. Then he like dies before Rogue One happens, and we're like, oh,
right.
man, that was one of my favorite characters.
I could totally see them going that route. I kind of hope that all of this like makes him double down and get. Like,
that's what I was just going to say.
Worse, you know, like
it could go.
He's going to learn to be truly ruthless.
Like he's just going to hunt Cassian down to prove he was right and better than what he gets when he gets dressed down and basically fired. Yeah. It's going to motivate him to do more crazy stuff. And,
you know, obviously we know that like Mon Mothma can't die, and that Cassian can't die, and you know someone like Bail Organa or Saw can't die, but Luthen is wide open, and I feel like by the time this series is over, he's probably going to be the big sacrificial death, and especially because everyone's grabbing onto him as like this great new character. I could totally see Cyril like being the guy that does it and really becoming the most hated man on the internet for a week.
So part of me feels like Luthen could go the other way, where he's playing both sides and then he chooses the Empire for some reason. I got that vibe for some reason in this episode. Like he's playing so many different angles that you don't know where he's truly coming from. But
that could be interesting. Just because we have we'll have this whole story with Saw, like how he gets like more and more like out there and essentially becomes like more and more extreme. But the one thing, as like what we were talking about, Cyril, that I thought was funny was that like when he did go to the door and his mom slapped him, and that lady stopped
the neighbor.
And his mom was like, "What are you looking at?" I was like, "You just slapped him in front of the." I just wanted to watch the drama. I wanted to see what happened next. That's what she's looking at.
It was interesting that he never spoke a line in this episode either. He felt like he would have been saying something at some point, based on how he was in the first one. If he said something, I missed it. Then.
Yeah, I don't remember anything offhand for him either, too.
For Cyril?
Yeah.
He said mother at the door, but other than that, I feel like he tried to talk during when Blevin was sort of dressing him down, but he didn't really get too much out. Yeah. I
liked that. That was for me, that was a funny scene because the guy in the middle is like, I didn't even do anything.
Yeah, that guy's great.
And then the hand raise. Like, are you kidding me?
The guy that like doesn't want to make any waves and like
Mm.
he's just doing the bare minimum. Like I really relate to that.
I also liked the AK-47s in space.
Yes, little dressed up.
Yeah.
Classic weaponry. The Eye of Aldhani thing was really interesting. This like celestial event that happens every 3 years.
Oh yeah.
They say it's sort of like 50 meteor showers at once, and I think we've already seen that too, right? In the trailers, the scenes of Andor piloting the like freighter.
Oh yeah, like through that. It's
While there's like
one
debris flying all around him, I think that's sort of the end of the heist of him trying to get out of there. So
yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, because that kind of seems like a Chekhov's gun kind of thing. Like you don't like mention that and then not like show that.
Yeah.
There's no way they're not showing that. They have
with that
in some fashion
too that they showed for the plan on that too. That seemed like very similar to like the same kind of rail like train system that whole heist that they do in Solo.
From Solo. Yeah, definitely.
So I was like, if they do a heist on a train in this, then it's almost like the same thing. That'd be kind of funny in a way. They just did.
Yeah, we got a train heist shootout in Mandalorian. We got one in Book of Boba Fett. Get one in Andor. We're doing well. There wasn't a train. Well, there was a transport in Obi-Wan, but no one attacked it. But
yeah.
What is with the Empire building all their bases and keeping stuff underwater? Like, why dam a river just to build a base under it? It's going to cause you problems.
That's true.
Yeah,
because they had one at Obi-Wan that flooded. This one's going to flood. I have a feeling.
Yeah, that dam's going to get blown up, I assume.
Sylvie agreed with that, by the way.
She just wants water.
No, she finished her like treat that she's been eating the entire time that was keeping her distracted. Now she's no longer distracted. Is there anything else you guys wanted to kind of speak on that we haven't said yet about this episode?
I'll just echo Adam with the realism that they're putting into it, like seeing Coruscant with real buildings. That's like less. Yes, there's CGI, but it feels like there's more physical things that they're reacting with and using, and just the way they're putting it out there is just very real, and it has a very just I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's refreshing to see unpolished everything. Yeah, tactile is a good word.
Yeah.
That's that. Yeah, I don't think did they use the volume for this at all? Like in
no, they shot it all in the UK, and that's an interesting thing because I think initially it was just merely scheduling. You know, they only had one volume and they were shooting Mandalorian there, and so Andor was going to shoot other places, and then but going forward with season 2, you know, will they stick to that? Will they shoot everything on location again, or since now there's multiple stagecraft locations? I think they were trying to set one up in London. Will they utilize some of that as well? And how will that affect the show? You know, I think the most interesting thing about the show for me personally isn't even the story thus far. It's sort of the ramifications that this series could have on Star Wars overall.
Yeah.
Because we're coming out of sort of the first quote unquote generation of Disney's Lucasfilm movies. You know,
Right.
the sequel trilogy is done. We got some standalones. They got Disney Plus off the ground, and Mandalorian and stuff is great. But I think there's been some criticism about maybe the over-reliance of the volume and how maybe while that technology is amazing, it may also be limiting in a certain way. I felt it with Obi-Wan more than Boba or Mando, but just feeling that like almost claustrophobia of like very small locations, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas Andor is wide open because you have all these great vistas
Yeah.
and stuff, and so I just wonder going forward, you know, will the Mandoverse shows maybe adopt more of Andor's approach, or will Andor start to blend the two together more in its second season? Because you know, again, it's Obi-Wan was 6 episodes, right? And
Yeah.
this is going to be 24 episodes by the time it's done. It's going to be 16 hours devoted to a tertiary character from Rogue One, you know. And that's nothing against Andor at all. It's just, you know, he wasn't even the main character of Rogue One, and then
Right.
he already died in Rogue One, and so but we're using him as sort of this vessel to explore this timeline of the rebellion coming together, and so, you know, 16 hours devoted to a new character that way really makes me wish that we could have got 12 episodes of Mando each season, or, you know, 12 episodes
Right.
of Book of Boba Fett kind of thing. So I'm excited to see what, you know, how the shows react to this, and how, you know, audiences react. Are people really digging it? Are they able to invest in a character that isn't, you know, iconic in the way that Obi-Wan or Boba Fett, you know, and even Mandalorian, yes, a new character, but Grogu instantly won everyone over, you know, because it's something familiar. Um, and Andor, you know, like outside of people that are diehard fans of, you know, like Mon Mothma and stuff, you know,
Right.
it's sort of new ground for Star Wars to cover this like truly everyday characters completely disconnected from the Force, or like mysticism, or like the more mythological aspects of Star Wars.
Yeah, that reminds me too with the kyber crystal that Luthen handed over um, to Andor.
Clem.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like a uh, like what's the word, like as a, I don't know, like insurance kind of thing. So like you're like, so you like he knows that like he's serious about like what's going on and whatnot.
Yeah,
So I thought this was interesting because like we already had like Jin had her dad's uh, kyber crystal and that.
yeah,
But it's interesting, just like seeing like non-force users like within this world like using the kyber crystals kind of like in a kind of sort of like spiritual way of just as like um, but not, you know, putting them into like a
yeah.
weapon to like be
It's
used as a,
very like new agey, you know,
Well,
like,
didn't they use the crystals in the Death Star to make the
yeah,
weapon?
yeah.
yeah,
So
So that's
and
like kind
and
of again that like, you know, split dichotomy of like
and the
two.
crystal that Luthen gives Andor, I think he mentions it's like from the like rattan, the furniture, like the rattan Empire or something like that, which I think was like a Knights of the Old Republic reference. So like that's
That's
going
very cool.
thousands and thousands of years back. So
And I'm assuming that'll become more important in the series too, because like since they focus so much on that in this episode too.
yeah, I guess he'll have to barter with it or something at some point.
Yeah, definitely should be interesting. I'm excited to see like what they'll do next week, and if it is going to be like this 3 act structure, I'm assuming um, like next week will be like the Empire or Two Towers of it all, like where it's the that middle part of the story. But I'm excited for what's to come. I'm really enjoying this so far, and I did like this episode too, where we got a little deeper into um, what's all going on, and I liked that we got to see Mon Mothma again, and like you said with Genevieve O'Reilly, I'm glad that she's finally like getting to do more with this part where like she was hired like way back in 2004, 2003, to
Yeah.
play Mon Mothma in Revenge of the Sith, and all those scenes got deleted out of the movie. And then she got to come back for Rogue One, and then now she's finally getting to expand more and do more with the part. So I think that's cool that like this, at least for her as an actor, how this like story is kind of coming full circle with getting to portray Mon Mothma on screen and like fleshing out this character more that we really only saw a little bit like in like Return of the Jedi, because I don't even think we even saw her. She wasn't in A New Hope, right?
No.
Yeah, so I wonder if they'll ever explain like why she's not there in that too. If like she's like,
well, yeah, it's funny because they have her in Rogue One, obviously, right up until the moment that Star Wars begins, and then I guess she has to flee and go somewhere. But yeah, it's always cool when you can add new context to a character. And so after we go through this like 24 episode journey with Mon Mothma, like watching Return of the Jedi will be a slightly different experience because you'll have that knowledge of everything that she's sort of sacrificed or that she's gone through to get to where she is there.
Yeah. And
that's one thing these series have been doing is just deepening my appreciation for the lore and Star Wars in general, just how vast it is and how intertwined everything is. And then when you go back and watch something else, you're like, oh, I saw this in Obi-Wan. He mentions this. This is even better now.
Yeah.
And with like her, it just shows how good like the casting is too, with like how much, at least visually, like she looks just like she did in Return of the Jedi when it's not even the same person. But I think that's gonna wrap us up for this coverage of the 4th episode of Andor. Don't forget, guys, you can leave us a review on the podcast catcher of your choice if it allows you to do so, like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, any of those places. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can like the video, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff you hear in all the videos and stuff. And then you can follow us on all the social media places. You can find all the links for that. I'm not going to spot them all off this week because I realize it just takes a long time. But yeah, all of those links are either underneath this video or in the show notes for the podcast. So you can click those there and they'll bring you to the right spots. Same thing with our individual accounts on Instagram and Twitter. You could find that info in the info below or in the show notes again for the podcast. And then where can they find you, Adam?
I am at Adam Frazier on Twitter, and you can find me every Friday at /film where I write the Star Wars Bits column. So I'll have a new one out tomorrow.
And if you like Star Wars, which I'm assuming you do if you're watching or listening to this, definitely check that out. It's a great resource for all of the Star Wars news from each week. So definitely check that out. And then if you guys want to email us, you can email us at holdopod@gmail.com. But before we say our closing lines, thank you again for coming on, Adam. Again.
Yes, thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
You're always welcome again in the future as well. So with that, as always, we are grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Oh dear, thank the maker.